Okay, we're back learning about Yishmael and his constant harassing of the Jewish people over the generations. And he says like this, B'Pirkei the Rabbi Eliezer, in one of our texts called Pirkei the Rabbi Eliezer, it says Yishmael minayin, I guess, which means Yishmael. From where do we know Yishmael from? That name, Shenemar, it says, V'karasa Shema Yishmael. It says that he called his name Yishmael. So either Hashem called his name Yishmael, Avram called his name Yishmael. He was called Yishmael. V'lama nikra Shema Yishmael. Why was his name called Yishmael? Because in the future, God is going to hear the crying of his nation, of the Jewish people, from what the children of Yishmael are going to end up doing, how they're going to oppress us and harass us and hurt us. That's why his name is called Yishmael. We spoke about this idea before. Yishma Kel v'ya'anim. Like it says in Tehillim, in Psalms, Yishma Kel, Hashem hears the voice of the Jewish people, v'ya'anim, and he answers us. So Yishmael is a contraction of the word Yishma Kel. Hashem will hear. Whose voice is going to hear? He's going to hear our voice, because we are going to call out to Hashem based on the suffering that Yishmael is going to put us through. Now, over there, he says on that verse, the Radal, who's one of the commentators, Sheir the kan mevoy shenikra shema Yishmael al shem she'asid HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmael v'kol b'nei Yisrael ma she'yasu lehem b'nei Yishmael. So, what is the name Yishmael coming for? It's a name that is like a premonition of the future of who this boy is going to be. He's going to be so cruel to the Jewish people. He's going to cause us so much pain and discomfort and anguish that we are going to call out to Hashem, and Hashem is going to hear our voice. So the name Yishmael, according to this, is on the future actions that Yishmael is going to do, and which is going to lead us to call out to Hashem. Vilo Bekra, but if you look in the verse in the Torah, it says, Shamar la malach tam Hashem ki shama Hashem al anyach. Hashem told to Hagar, who is the mother of Yishmael, his name is Yishmael. Why? Because Hashem has heard your cries. So that means, on one verse is telling us the name of Yishmael is because of the future cries that are going to come as a result of him. But in the Torah itself, it's telling us that the reason that his name is Yishmael is because Hashem heard the cries, Hashem hears the cries of Hagar. And he says, V'tir zelaisagi bihachi, the Yishmael mashma lashon asid, u'lechein darish lashon asid, she'asid Hashem l'Yishmael v'kol na'akas b'nei Sarah, mi'inu Yishmael oisam. So he says, well, the problem is that Yishmael itself, Yishmael, is written in the future language, right? In the Hebrew language, in grammar of Hebrew, you have past tense and you have future tense. And the name Yishmael is written in the future tense. Yishmael, Hashem will hear. Doesn't say he heard, he will hear. And therefore, Dorish Lashon Asid Sha'asid Hashem Lishma B'kol Nakas B'nei Sarah, Hashem is going to hear in the future the cries of the children of Sarah, Mi'inu Yishmael, from the suffering that Yishmael is going to cause them. And this that it says, Kisham Hashem El Anyech, and this that it says in the Torah, that the reason his name is Yishmael is because God heard the cries of Hagar. Because since that Sarah, she oppressed Hagar, therefore Hashem listened to the cries of Hagar, that her offspring in the future would have the ability to oppress the offspring of Sarah. So where do you see in the name of Yishmael, where do you see the past and the future? You see that he's saying, Hagar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has heard your cries because of the pain that Sarah has inflicted to you. And therefore, you are going to have a child that in the future is going to have the right to inflict pain into the children of Sarah Imenu. So it's right now, we're hearing your cries. The result is going to be that it's going to create a child that in the future is going to cause suffering and pain to the Jewish people.
But when you say he has the right, that means it's with impunity.
What do you mean by that?
He can do it without getting punished.
No, that's not.
He has the right.
Okay, let's see. Okay,
You know.
let's see. He'll be able to. Let's see.
Also, one quick question. Would you say Pharaoh and the Egyptians were their descendants of no?
No, would not say that. They're their own nation.
Right, but I thought throughout the generations it might be descendants of Ishmael.
I don't think Mitzrayim is a descendant of Ishmael. I don't think so. I think they're descendants of, should be from, okay, we have to take a look. If it should be from Esav, no? They're descendants of them. We'll have to take a look inside. So he says like this, this that the Radal writes over here, who's commentating that because of the suffering that Sarah caused to Hagar, and she cried out, Hashem heard her pain, her suffering, her cries, and therefore the punishment or the reward to Hagar, so to speak, is she's going to be given a child who's going to go and oppress the Jewish people in the future. Since that Sarah oppressed her, Hashem heard about her, Hagar's impression. And therefore Hagar would have some kind of strength to be able to oppress the offspring of Sarah. Now this, he writes, is really what the Ramban Nachmani says in the Chumash. And the Ramban says like this. The Pasuk says, V'tana Sarai v'tivrecha mibaneha. Sarai, she oppressed Hagar, and Hagar ran away from her. Says the Ramban, and if you wouldn't be the Ramban, if you wouldn't be the great Nachmanides, you'd never be able to say these words, but the Ramban says the following words. Chata imenu bi'inu yazeh. Our matriarch Sarah, she sinned with this oppression that she placed upon Hagar. V'gam Avraham b'hanichol asais kain. And even Avraham made a mistake by allowing his wife to cause pain and suffering to Hagar. V'shama Hashem alaniya, and Hashem heard the cries and the suffering that Hagar was going through. V'nasa la ben, and he gave her a son, she'pera adam, that will be a wild man. La'anois zera Avraham v'Sarah, to be able to oppress the offspring of Avraham and Sarah, b'chol min ya'inu, with all different types of suffering, as we see over the generations. That, says the Ramban, is what's going on over here. Now, Yini Meforish Ramban. The Ramban is explaining, Dimasha Shama Hashem in Aniyah, this that Hashem heard the cries and the suffering of Hagar, Niskayim b'masha nasan la ben para adam la'anais b'nei Avram v'Sarah. So the measure for measure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing over here is, since that you acted wrongfully by oppressing Hagar, she was bothering you, you didn't like her, so just get rid of it in an honorable way. But you went out of your way to cause her pain and suffering. Therefore, as a result of that, now I hear the cries of Hagar, who's suffering because of you. So you've just created in the heavens a reaction that now mida keneged mida, measure for measure, she's going to have a child. He's going to be a wild man, para adam, a wild man, and he's going to have the ability over generations to end up causing suffering to your offspring as well. You did this. The greater the person is, they cannot be absolved from their sins, and therefore you're going to have to get this now in response, which is going to be a suffering for all the generations of the Jewish people. Yes?
So, Sarah would seem to have had a certain righteousness in treating Hagar like she did, because I'm looking at chapter 16. It's all about Hagar and Ishmael, and of course says that when she saw that she conceived, her mistress was lowered in her esteem. So Sarah said to Abraham, the outrage against me is due to you, and let Hashem judge between me and you. Abram says, he's still Abram, he's not Abraham yet.
Okay.
And he says, behold your maidservant in your hand, do as you see fit. So she dealt harshly with her, she fled. So, interestingly, I'm observing here that an angel of Hashem found her by the spring of water in the desert. And she explains why she's running away. And the angel says to return. And the angel said to her, I'll greatly increase your offspring. They'll not be counted because of abundance. And then the angel says to her, I was thinking, so who named her? Was it Hashem? Was it Avram? Was it Hagar that gave the name to Ishmael? No, it says very clearly. The angel says, I will greatly, it says, behold, you will conceive and give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael. For Hashem has heard your prayer. And he shall be a wild ass of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him.
Right, so,
and over
okay,
all his
so,
brothers shall be dwell, as we were just saying. And it finishes like this. She called the name of Hashem who spoke to her. You are the God of vision. This is curious. God of vision, for she said, could I have seen even here after having seen? Not sure what that means.
Okay.
But the last thing I want to say here is that, or call our attention to, is that Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son that Hagar bore him Ishmael.
Okay.
So she obviously told him the story of this angel, right?
Maybe,
that same name.
I mean, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. We find that Yitzchak is the name that Hashem decides is going to be for his son, but yet Avram also knows the name is Yitzchak. Like, these are prophets. I don't know, I don't know that Hagar, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I don't know if they spoke privately to each other and she said, you should know you're in big trouble because I'm going to have a son that's going to end up oppressing you and your people, and his name is Ishmael. So Avram said, oh, okay, let's name him Ishmael. I don't know. And maybe Avram, I don't know. I don't know.
Isn't there a law that the sins of the father should not be bore by the sons or the children?
Not so true.
No?
No. We have to absolve the sins of the father. Again, the Ramban is
Passed down to the children?
Yeah, there has to be corrective measures that take place. Okay, there's a lot more to say over here. I think we're going to stop it. I'm not going to be here next week. So Monday, Wednesday, there's not going to be class. God willing, the following week, maybe Monday, I'll be back on Monday morning already, so I'll see where I'm holding. Maybe there'll be class, I'll let you know. And we have to see the conclusion of these words in the Ramban to understand what our connection is between us and Yishmael and how we're going to combat them. I'm going to try to make recordings. I'm going to be in Israel.
Don't show up over here.
No. Starting on